Okay, hello, Sean, and welcome to the AI SDR Movement Season 2. Thanks for joining me.
Nice to be back, Maura.
It's good to have you. So today we're talking all about agents. So this is obviously the topic du jour, de month, de year. Everybody's talking about agents. You're super well-versed. I want to get your perspective before we kind of dive in. How do you define an agent?
Yeah, I mean, an agent is the doer, right? An agent is a program that autonomously executes tasks and workflows to get things done. I mean, the LLM certainly represents a new era of intelligence. And I think the agent represents sort of the units of work being executed autonomously. And I think, agents have some requirements. They need to be able to ingest a lot of data. They need to be able to reason and plan. And, it's really the AI doing the work, right? So it's become less about, the LLM and a single shot prompt. It's been more about sort of giving an agent the context, the goals, the tasks, and letting the agent figure out how to get it done.
Mm-hmm. And we've seen agents emerge in every different line of work. Like, tell me about some agents that have come about that you're excited about, just to make it more tangible of like, okay, you hear the word agent, it's a loaded term. Are there some agents that you've seen that you're particularly excited about, kind of that have evolved over the last couple months?
I mean, there's a lot. I've spent quite a bit of time. It's really exciting when you start to experience the future, on your keyboard. Mm-hmm. And I think everyone's excited first and foremost because they're kind of moving into this world where they can see a world where they're paying for the work that gets done autonomously and they're not paying for tooling. So paying for labor, not tools. The economic ramifications are extraordinary. I think teams are going to be leaner. I think everybody sees that you're going to need kind of fewer humans as it exists today. That doesn't mean there won't be new jobs created, especially as it relates to this platform shift. I think it's going to create a lot of new job opportunities for people. But at the end of the day, I think it's very clear people are going to move an agentic layer into whatever job function they have, whether you're in the go-to-market, whether you're in IT, product and eng, legal, HR, you're going to bring in an agentic layer. And I think everybody sees that right now. Mm-hmm. I've made it a point to every week try a few agents or agent development platforms just to kind of see what's out there. And it's really exciting. The one I most recently was excited about was called, I think I mentioned it to you.
Yeah.
It's called napkin.ai, and extraordinary for a product marketer. A product marketer is, a lot of their job is to represent information visually that's on brand and on message, but it's demonstrating concepts. And they have to get creative in terms of how they do that. Representing information visually is a big part of their job. And you can just paste in text, or you can use a prompt and explain what you want, and it will come up with a whole bunch of variations. It's extremely well done. The other one was Polymet. I believe these are both YC companies. Polymet is effectively a product designer, and you can give it a whole bunch of inputs and prompts, and it will create layouts for you that you can import into Figma. So, it's moving really fast. But I think the thing you'll start to experience right away is there's still a lot of work that goes into it. Mm-hmm. It's not like a smart button where you push it and all of a sudden you've spun up this autonomous agent that can go execute tasks and workflows. There's a lot of considerations when you build them. And by the way, these are consumer agents that I've been building. Enterprise agents are a whole different thing with a whole different level of complexity, moderation, security, data privacy, a lot of considerations that go into like creating an autonomous agent that's executing, on its own, reasoning, planning, executing, taking actions, reacting, giving it access to your enterprise data can be pretty daunting.
Mm-hmm. We're at this interesting point where it's exciting because all of a sudden there's like this new type of worker who's emerged who can be on your team, but there's also a lot to learn, and there's a lot for these agents to grow. As we talk about kind of the last couple of years, we went from the world of the co-pilot to the world of autopilot to this world of like completely autonomous agents. Where do you think we are as we look at kind of the landscape and where it's going? You kind of mentioned we're still pretty early on. Where do you see this all going?
Yeah, look, I still think we're at the first step of a marathon. Mm-hmm. I think it's exciting because everybody sees the future and sees what's coming, and it's becoming a little bit more well-defined. But I mean, we're still really early in the grand scheme of things. So I think the business leaders know that if they don't figure this out, they're going to get left behind and it's going to be a big problem for them. So everybody knows they need to lean in and figure it out. They need to learn. They need to educate themselves. They need to run pilots. They need to experiment, because if you don't have agentic layers within your workforce, you're going to get left behind. It's clear. Now, where they lean in, I think kind of differs. And I think it also differs across the size of company as well. Like global distributed enterprises who have a lot more rigor, compliance requirements, security requirements, a lot more sophisticated and mature programs. I think they have more work to do to start to bring in an agentic layer. SMBs, mid-market, I think they're moving pretty fast. So,
well, you just mentioned too that I've never even heard of. Like, I feel like every week there's new agents that are emerging, and the companies that are really forward-looking, they're open-minded to bringing them onto their team, whether it's our developer team or our legal team or our sales and marketing team. Like, those are the folks who are going to get ahead because they understand the promise and the potential.
Yeah,
there,
100%. But it's again, just like anything, it's early, but it's moving very fast. It is, and I think it's the promise is evident. Just like LLMs blew our mind, these agents are blowing our mind too. But as you start to sort of immerse yourself into really a production agent in the enterprise, you start to see there's a lot of work that still has to be done to deploy agents in the enterprise. It's not necessarily a bad thing. It's just, I think people underestimate when you see that magic. Sometimes you think you're going to be able to wave the magic wand. There's still an awful lot of work. And that's, of course, what we're focused on right now really is like building out, the guardrails, the security, the privacy, the moderation, the control, but also making sure that like a company can make the agent act on their behalf, like on behalf in our case of your go-to-market, right? The agent is a representative of your business, of your company. And that's, I think, where a lot of the work comes in.
Well, I think that's a great segue to dive into what we're calling agentic marketing, which is this huge movement that's happening all around us where you can have agents who are working for you for your go-to-market to move things forward. How do you define agentic marketing?
Yeah, look, I think it's not only unique to marketing, but I think every function within a business, and that includes the tooling and technology, the processes, the operations, the teams and org structures. I think it's all being reimagined and being rewritten. It's not going to happen overnight. It's going to take time, but I think it's very clear that it's being rewritten. Historically, I think, marketing automation platforms were invented for a different time in a different era with different capabilities. And to be honest, a different buying process altogether. Like the expectations of a buyer were different. Marketing automation has been around for 20 years. And a lot of the processes and operations and a lot of sort of the, what I think about is being sort of locked into certain ways of doing things. Like overnight, they just kind of went away. So like the unlock from the agentic workforce and of course AI in general, systems are going to be instruction based. They're not going to be hard-coded templates. They're not going to be so labor-intensive. It's going to be less about having templates and pre-built journeys. It's going to be more about like providing instruction, context, and data and goals to agents, and they're going to go execute against these, preset, like defined strategies, and they're going to be able to do it at scale on a one-to-one level. That's something like marketing automation, like the promise of it was personalized one-to-one marketing. That's not what happened.
Yes.
And, to no fault of theirs. I mean, what marketing automation has done, they're the system of record for a lead, which is amazing. But now I think like the capabilities that are unleashed with AI, the systems, the processes, the operations, they're all going to change drastically. By the way, not just marketing, every business function.
I think it's exciting. Like the promise of marketing automation was personalization at scale, but it wasn't really personalization at scale. It was, first name, last name in your emails, or personalization based on your industry. It wasn't personalized experiences based on the actions you were taking and knowing intimately who Sean is and what he wants, and like being able to deliver that bespoke experience. I think one thing that I'm kind of trying to wrap my head around is there's marketing automation. This is kind of the foundation for us as B2B marketers over the last 15 years. It's what we were educated on and how we've built our playbooks. And then there's agentic marketing, which is the ability to employ these agents to help you move things forward. Do you see those two things working together, or one replacing the other? Or how do you see the landscape?
Yeah, look, agent has become sort of this overarching term that we use to represent like AI taking on workloads. I think there's different types of agents, right? There's agents that might be interfacing with an end user or a customer or a prospect. But there's also agents that might work in the background, kind of doing things, right? And you're going to see sort of multi-agent environments. There's going to be agent development platforms that pop up, of course. And then I think that you're going to see also is like what I call kind of super agents, which are like a collection of agentic workflows that are combined into sort of one agent. And that's, of course, like how we think about it. And again, I think it's really important to break down the actual tasks and workflows that are executed by a role or a person, and look at those and like really evaluate which are the ones that are really just much better served by the AI. And that's kind of how I think we've thought about it to date.
Well, I think that's a great segue to talking about our approach to the AI SDR. And as we looked at the marketing landscape, and you've been on marketing teams for years and years, that's kind of where some of your background is. You were at product marketing at Salesforce a long time ago. And so when we looked at the marketing landscape, AI SDR was where we wanted to begin. Why is that role ripe for an agent?
For a number of reasons. One, a lot of the work, when we started Qualified, we recognized that the sales development, right, is has become like a big team within companies. And their whole job really, whether you're inbound or you're hybrid or you're outbound, is to generate pipeline. But a lot of it is like very top of funnel. And you're really sort of trying to sort of understand, are they a good fit? You're asking some qualification questions. Is this a good use of our time? They're really sort of that like layer between like a buyer and a seller, which is interesting because like the buyer and the seller has put like a very young person early in their career, and they've given them a hammer and a nail, which historically was email and calendar. And so when we built Qualified, we said like, we need to give them the Iron Man suit. We need to give them all the data and all the context, and we need to make sure that they have everything they need to have the right conversation with the right person at the right time, with the right tone. Do they need to be qualified? If it's a target account that's coming from your, fancy event in Vegas that you invited them to, they don't need qualification. But if it's someone who's signing up on the web and they're from, maybe a geography that doesn't buy software from you, they probably need some back and forth a little bit to make sure that they're a good fit and it's a good use of everyone's time. So for us, it was a very natural extension to sort of take a look at like all of this data. Really, data is the number one thing. Like we spent the last 6 years compiling a unified view of the data that an SDR needs. And now what we're doing is we're taking that data and we're creating the context around that data for the AI agent to go autonomously execute a lot of these tasks and workflows that were historically done by people. And if you look inside of a company, look inside of an enterprise, they could have 4, 5, 600 of these people. And if you do that math, call it 500 times 80 to 100K fully loaded, that's a lot of W2, right? So the efficiency gains are extraordinary. And to be honest, an autonomous agent is going to be able to do this job better. They speak every language. They work around the clock. They memorized your entire GTM systems landscape. And it's going to get better over time. So I think it's very clear that this is going to happen. Will there be a lot of hard work involved? Yes. Will you have to have a lot of data? Yes. Will there need to be someone that really focuses exclusively on this one problem? Yes. I think, we're focused on a very finite set of things. And I think it's still really, really hard. I think there's a lot of people out there that are focused on like a broader sort of agent development story around building digital workers. I think it's going to be really hard for them to compete with someone who has all the domain expertise, knows how to operationalize it, understands the requirements, and really has sort of spent a lot of time on like what this agent needs to be for it to, act autonomously on your behalf.
Mm-hmm. And at Qualified, we're very much focused on the marketing funnel. How do you put an AI SDR in the middle of your agentic marketing funnel so that you can service all leads autonomously at scale? Can you tell me a little bit about like the history of the SDR role? Because we've talked about this where SDRs often they sit in the revenue function and underneath sales, but AI SDRs can now be hired to really support the marketers and the CMO and the heads of demand gen and the head of marketing operations. How do you see AI SDRs like better servicing marketing teams than maybe human SDRs could have in the past?
Absolutely. And again, getting back to sort of terminology, like SDRs used to mean inbound. They were sales development representatives and they worked inbound, right? Inbound was the marketing team does everything they need to do to generate awareness across communities, SEO, SEM, out of home, everything you do to generate awareness about your product. You're trying to generate ICP leads, and then they're given to SDRs to sort of like do that initial qualification, and then they pass those to sales reps. So that's like historically what the SDR did. They used to call this the BDR. The BDR was a business development representative, and they were outbound, and they were prospecting into contacts associated with buying committees, writing emails, doing social connect. So both trying to generate pipeline, but historically there was an SDR that was for more inbound, your Glengarry leads, and then there was outbound that was going out hunting, right? So as it relates to the SDR inbound, that's a marketing function. Inbound is marketing. And so we have been very focused, obviously, on a lot of things that have historically been MOPS functions. So data and reporting and attribution and segmentation and qualification and systems updates, that's all MOPS. And sort of the SDR has been the hammer. They've been out there kind of doing the manual labor around this. It's pretty clear to me that every company that uses marketing automation is going to have an AI SDR that works with marketing automation.
Mm-hmm.
They go hand in hand, and the lines are going to blur between those departments. I think the inside sales role in general will be automated. I think it will be agentic completely. Mm-hmm. And I think the inbound tasks and workflows will be executed by an autonomous inbound agent. And I think that will be attached at the hip to marketing, and it will roll into someone like yourself, a CMO.
Mm-hmm. And the reason it's exciting is like having an agent who works for you as a CMO, all of a sudden you have access to lead follow-up that you never had in the past. It was always a bit of a blind spot of we're doing all this stuff out of home, digital ads, lead capture events. We capture these leads, we throw them over the fence. We hope they're getting worked in a timely manner. And you don't have visibility into it, nor do you have control over how they're prioritizing those leads. Something that's interesting that we've talked about is like the AI SDR for us, Piper, she works for me. She works on our team. Chris, who runs demand gen, he in growth, he oversees Piper, but it's also created some new roles. So we now have like Piper's manager, he used to be in a sales role. This guy, Ryan, he's now overseeing Piper because you still need those guardrails and human oversight to make sure that they're giving her the right direction and she's following up with leads appropriately and she's always on message. And so agents allow you to scale certain jobs, but you also like it's creating some new jobs for folks who are going to oversee the agents, which is exciting.
Yeah.
I'm curious for you, like where we've kind of started with this role of the AI SDR, and that's a great spot for kind of an agent to take over. How else do you see marketers leveraging agents kind of zooming out in their day-to-day and this agentic marketing movement? Where else will agents come into play beyond just like pure pipe gen?
I mean, I think they're going to come into play across the board. I think every business leader at every company is challenging their team. Like, how are you using AI in your day to day? Like, how are you? If you're an engineer, you're saying, how are you using, Cursor? Like, how are you speeding up? You're like, what? There should be a Slack channel in every single company in every single organization where every employee is sharing, like, wow, I use this. Look what it did for me. Like sort of the examples I gave you today. But I think, look, everything around content generation, I think creative, Danny, creative. I think campaign execution, campaign management, reporting, insights, like everything.
There's
I,
going to
I,
be an agent for
I
all of it.
I think there's going to be um, different types of agents,
Hmm.
whether it's an agent or whether it's AI, but there'll be an AI driven approach to every function across every area of a business. It's only a matter of time. And I think that, as it relates to marketing, I think if you look at all of the modules across every piece of MarTech are going to be reimagined.
Hmm.
And I think a lot of it is going to manifest as either an agent or a collection of agents.
Hmm. I think to close out, Sean, like you've been in this industry for a long time in B2B SaaS, and you are lighting up talking about like this new agentic movement and agentic marketing. Why are you so excited about it? Like it's this whole new world, but what's your perspective on why you're pumped about it?
Yeah, I mean, as you mentioned, I have been in this industry for a long time. I appreciate that. As I tell my daughters, I'm seasoned.
Seasoned, experienced.
But I am seasoned enough to have been here through pre-internet. I started my career in on-premise. Everything was on-premise. And then we saw the cloud and the change of the entire software delivery model. And then, of course, we saw mobile and social and these things. I think this is the biggest platform shift since the internet. I think, honestly, it really is. And I think the agentic workforce is the first major wave of impact from AI. And I think it's going to be transformational across the board. And it's really fun to be early. It's fun to sort of, we started our company 6 years ago. So we have data and workflow and domain expertise and customers and customer feedback cycles. We have enough of that, but we also are small enough to be nimble. And so we're really excited about all of these new capabilities that have come to us. And it's really nice to be able to have a very concerted, focused area to put all of our horsepower in the way of an AI SDR agent.
Mm-hmm. It's exciting. Well, Sean, thanks for joining today. We'll see you next time.
Okay, thanks.